House of the Devil, Ty West film. I found this movie, I don't know, a while ago, years ago, and it was another blind Netflix watching. I was just like, oh, it's a stormy night. What am I going to do? Let's watch a horror film. And sometimes it's just like, I don't know. You don't even care what the cover looks like. You're just like, I'll just try it. And I know you're a completionist, so you have to think about what you're getting into because you're going to be spending some time on that.
I'm going to watch it to the end.
Me, I'm not like that. So if I get in, I'm spending 20 minutes on that film, and it's really, I'm turning that shit off. But this one immediately drew me in because, first off, it looked exactly like a late 70s, early 80s horror flick. Exactly. It wasn't like, oh, this is a low-budget film, so it has to look like that. Or they didn't have the money to put into excellent cinematography or anything like that. I felt like Ty West intentionally made an 80s horror flick. And I felt like that's cool. So, I mean, the nostalgia was there, but I was like, hey, that's cool, because a lot of people try to pull that off, and it looks like a faked version of what they're trying to do. Like, you recognize it, But whenever I watched that film, it legitimately looks like it was filmed in that era.
Yeah, absolutely. If I had not known that it was a more modern movie, I would have thought that it was like in early 80s.
Even the people in it looked like they were from that era.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, it had that kind of film grain to it, and everything was pretty accurate as far as what everybody looked like, what everything looked like.
So that drew me in right from the start. So I was going to finish that film no matter what, just from the feeling of like, I'm back in the 80s. Oh, what a fantastic time. And for those of you who've seen like older classics like Burnt Offering, which is I think that 1976 or something from with Oliver Reed, you'll recognize all the archetypes in House of the Devil. You'll immediately say, oh, I see what's going on here, because it's another one of those I'm in a new house, type of situation, and there's weird stuff going on. A broke college girl, Samantha Hughes, agrees to take a babysitting job to earn some extra cash.
Little does she know, it is the night of a full lunar eclipse, and she will be babysitting the House of the Devil.
Alright, story elements, House of the Devil. How you feel about it?
Story elements, it's got its cliches, but I think that they fit for the type of movie that it was trying to be. Because we already talked about that it's done like a late 70s, early 80s movie, and it looks like one. All the characters look like they're from that era, and the story is kind of that kind of cliche from that era.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, I think that whole like big haunted house thing was an old-timey thing anyway. From back in the time when people had big houses. Because they don't anymore, because we're all poor. Like this is our house, it's right there. That's where we live. We sleep right there. Like we can't have a haunted house because like our haunted house is like us farting in each other's faces or something like that. Or let the ghost out. But like it's definitely, I think, a thing that started becoming a trend in the 70s. The old Victorian style houses and whatnot, and they're haunted and something weird's going on. And that harkens back to, in Britain with the big castles, and they used to have the castle hauntings, like Canterville Ghost or something like that. So it's just like every horror film with the paranormal activity in the house, the houses just get smaller, but the archetypes are the same. So now it's like paranormal activity. It's like a one-room apartment. Go see some handprints. It's like, there's not even enough space to get scared. Claustrophobia might come into play in modern horror films, but so if we even see a haunted house movie now, we're like, ooh,
look how big the house
is. Look
at
the house. So that this film has that going for it, and the house looked cool. Good house.
Yeah. If we want to talk about do the characters' actions make sense, though?
Yeah.
I think is where it comes apart a little bit.
Provide more insight into that.
Okay, well, there are a bunch of times throughout the movie where, and I'm sure that you feel this way because you're really critical about this kind of stuff. If it was me or if it was you, we would have said, "Fuck it, I'm out."
Right.
I'm not doing this. It's weird. She has a friend that's telling her, "Fuck it, you're out. This is weird."
She's like,
and she keeps going, "Oh, it's money." And I mean, that's kind of where I can bring it back to. Okay, it kind of makes sense, because I think when she's done negotiating, she's getting $400 for being at the house for like 2 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
If we're assuming that it's in the 80s, it's even more. But $400 is still a lot of money,
Yeah.
even if we're saying it was today.
Right.
But I think if all signs were pointing to you need to get the fuck out of this house,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have stayed there for $400.
Not $400. No. This isn't the Ninth Gate, and then Dean Corso's getting a check with zeros added onto it from Boris Balkan, to go do some risky thing. So you're kind of like, depending on how many zeros are insinuated, you're like, oh, well, I don't know. I guess I could see myself maybe doing a few things, but just babysitting some creepy house from who owned by some creepy people.
And it's in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere. For $400.
And she has no way to leave whenever she's done because she's relying on her friend that's telling her, "Fuck it, you should get out of here.
Yeah.
It's weird." Her friend is dropping her off at that house.
Yeah.
So she has nowhere to go. She's relying on that person coming back and getting her to even leave.
Exactly. That's definitely a big problem. And then beyond, it's compounded by the fact that she's in the creepy house, babysitting the creepy house, and yet decides to put on a set of headphones and have a 10-minute dance montage.
Where she's just like running around the house and dancing and knocking shit over.
Yeah. And I get on some level that Ty West is like, hey, remember those times like when we made movies and then the characters didn't make sense?
Yeah.
I get that.
But it wasn't necessary. Yeah, I don't know if that's something that really happens. It's not something that I do. So yeah. I mean, from that aspect, I have to say it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense because that's 2 points already that logically, character-wise, if you're watching it as an audience member, $400, nah. Not even back then, nah. Situationally, I know that we're setting her up to be kind of desperate at the beginning, she needs money and all that thing. But still, nah. She wasn't homeless, there wasn't people hassling her, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, then there were things in it that I didn't feel made sense. And maybe you did, and maybe there was something that I was missing. Because honestly, watching it through the second time, at the same point as the first time, I started to get, I kind of started to lose interest in it. Like, it was not holding my attention whenever that long scene happens where she's just pissing around in the house and nothing's really happening. Right. So there might have been things that I missed because it's kind of like, is this ever going to end? Are we actually going to get back into the movie at any point? So a couple things that I didn't think made sense, or I missed what the point was supposed to be of it, was the graveyard scene with the friend in the graveyard. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand what I understand the point, but I don't understand the point. Right. Because why was there somebody in the graveyard, and why were they expecting the babysitter to end up in the graveyard? If he was waiting there for the babysitter, why did they think that she was going to end up there? Yeah,
they could see the future.
Well, I will say that the conclusion of that scene is abrupt, it's brutal, and it's graphic, and it's amazing, and it makes you go, fuck. But it doesn't like I don't understand why that happened.
Right.
I don't understand why she went to the graveyard. I don't understand why the guy was in the graveyard. And I don't understand why he came up to her and was just like chit-chatting with her. And then it was like, oh, you're not the babysitter? It's like, why?
Yeah, I feel like the film needed to get her out of the way some kind of way.
Well, obviously, yeah.
But the way that the film got her out of the way didn't really, come from any threaded strings that had been put in place before that. Or at least not clearly to the viewer.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, I guess she had to die, but could you have made it at least make some sense?
Yeah.
It's like that's forced. Why did she have to drive in there to begin with? Like, why is she just hanging out in the graveyard? There's all kinds of stuff. It's like, okay.
And it's kind of implied that she pulls into the graveyard to smoke. But she stays in her car to smoke. So why did she have to stop and actually pull into the graveyard so that she could do that? She could have lit her cigarette before she left the property that she was dropping her friend off at, and she could have just smoked as she was driving.
Yeah.
Or if she didn't want to be preoccupied with the cigarette while she was driving, she could have smoked it and then drove, or just fucking waited until she got home.
Yeah. Or stop fucking smoking. I mean, there's a number of things that are kind of odd about it. And I don't even know how that guy got there in the graveyard. Was that established? I don't remember that.
No.
He just showed up.
And it's kind of vague as to how far that is from the house.
Yeah.
So it could be like a block away, and it would make sense that he just walked there.
Yeah.
Or it could have been they do mention a couple of times that they're in the middle of fucking nowhere, and the friend had to get a map to find out where they were even going to. So it's not something that's close. They're driving way out of the way, but it's not really established how far she is driving before she stops and that happens. So I guess if we're going to assume that it has to be something logical, it's pretty close. It's like maybe a couple blocks away from where the house is. But it's not really established that that's the case.
Right. But then we have to kind of work that out ourselves in maybe it's the case as the viewer, and that's distracting because it doesn't make any sense otherwise. And then we shouldn't have to make up stuff to make the story make sense. Yeah. I get that most films should not explain everything to us. That does not need to happen. It's overkill, and that gets boring if everything's like, by the way, the reason this is, we don't need that. But those are multiple things there that are issues. So I mean, that's beyond the fact that the film overall has a great feel to it. It has this technically, all these things came together well. Plot wise, like logic wise, it's not a film that's trying to be silly completely. It's not trying to not take itself somewhat seriously. So I'm not saying it's taking itself super seriously, but I'm also not saying that there wasn't some seriousness to it. So I'd subtract at least 1.5 points for that kind of half a point for at least every point that we made just now. Because they really detract from the film, I think. And anytime that some weird thing going on that is pulling your attention out of the film is a problem. So a long dance sequence that's not necessary at all,
other than to be to give it more of that feel.
Yeah.
But you could have, with the look of it and the attention to detail of the settings and everything, and the character, the costumes and the hairstyles and all of that stuff, you could have it still would have felt just like an early 80s movie without that crap.
It did. It already did. You didn't have to take it the next step forward.
And I would probably even be a little bit more brutal on the scoring and take a full 2 away.
I agree with that. I think that makes sense. I would give it a 4 out of 6 then. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
4 out of 6. That's the disappointed Asian father look. No. Direction and production. I feel this part of it is good. We're going to get to the technical elements at the end too, but so I feel, if anything, we've had all those criticisms about story elements and stuff, but the direction and production and the technical elements of the film are all fantastic.
Yeah.
Like we've mentioned multiple times already, it felt exactly like I was watching a late 70s, early 80s horror film. It had the same conventions, like almost exact same. And while I was watching it, I felt like it was an homage to those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I felt like that's great. And it wasn't just an homage, like, you know, I saw a film once from the 70s, let me make something like that. No, I feel like Ty West has a profound respect for those classic films because he put a lot of effort into making those details come to life. The actresses, what everyone wore, her clothing, you know, all this attention to detail, exactly the way it was. So that's why it's hard when we look at the plot elements and be like, and then the dance sequence, and it makes no sense. I know what I know what you're doing. You know, we just don't need that plot wise. But in terms of direction and production, excellent.
Yeah, the attention to detail I thought was outstanding. Little things like she pulls out the Walkman, and whenever she's sitting on the steps and she puts on, like, she pulls out the big Walkman and puts her headphones on when they're in the pizza place, and they've got the old style Coke cups that look exactly like, I would almost feel like somebody had to have had those, like, in their basement or something, like in storage.
How'd you get that?
Like that kind of stuff. It was excellent.
Right.
It looked. It was exactly what you would expect for that era.
So if there was any, you know, I don't feel like this was a super high production, you know, expensive film, but if any amount of money was put into it, it probably was into making all that shit look legit.
Yeah, and like the friend had like the feathered hair and stuff, and her roommate, you know, she looked like an 80s drugged out college girl. She had kind of like the big hair thing going, and sleazy friend or boyfriend fucking her all the time.
Everything made sense as far as the settings, the themes, the way everything looked, and the way it sounded. You know, even the music, everything felt exactly the way it was supposed to feel for what he was trying to do with the film. I would say 2 out of 2 for direction and production.
Yeah.
And since they're kind of linked together in this particular film so well, I feel like we might as well talk about technical elements really quick and just give it a 1 out of 1 while we're there too, because I felt like the way things sounded. You mentioned the Walkman, the music that she listened to, the music of the score itself, the sound, all the creepy noises and stuff like that. Everything worked well, exactly the way I feel like it should have for the film. So 2 out of 2 direction and production, 1 out of 1 technical elements. Good job on that side of it. Fantastic. All right, so last but not least, best speed and competence. How did you feel about the actors?
Most of them, I felt like there was probably a little bit lacking in most of them. Now, I don't know if he's been in other things or he kind of looked and sounded familiar, but the owner of the house, Vincent, whatever his name was, I really, really liked him.
Yeah.
There's something about the way that he speaks, and his movements, and like he was probably my favorite probably my favorite character, at least in the movie. Just something about the way that his canter whenever he's speaking, just the way that he was really good.
He's cool. Tom Noonan is his name. He's gigantic too. His name, like,
he definitely looked like
he's like taller. Oh, and if you don't know Tom Noonan, he's kind of, I guess, another archetype of horror films, an archetypal actor anyway. He's been in things like, he played Frankenstein in Monster Squad. Have you seen that?
No.
Sorry. Well, Tom Noonan, he's the owner of the house in House of the Devil. He plays Frankenstein in Monster Squad. He's been in classics like 12 Monkeys. He was in The X-Files. Like, I think he appeared in one of the series episodes. He's in Wolfen. He's in The Last Action Hero with Arnold. Oh, fantastic. I love the fact that we get to review horror films, and I still get to bring Arnold into it. Arnold was a good guy. I'm going to read this book again. Have you watched Pumping Iron again since that last time?
I haven't watched it again recently. No.
Yeah, I watched it the second time this week again.
But yeah, he was great. Everybody else, I didn't really feel it too much from everybody else.
Yeah.
I would probably even say the main actress. She wasn't bad, but she also wasn't really, I don't know, she wasn't really expressive, I guess. Like a lot of her reactions were kind of, meh.
Yeah. I felt like everyone looked the part, whether or not they went to the full range to get the characters exactly the way they wanted. The two people, I actually have a slight difference in opinion. The two people I felt that made the movie were Tom Noonan and his wife. Her name is Mary Warrenoff. I felt like both of them as a pair were creepy. And she has like an old prestigious evil witch look to her. You know?
Yeah, she definitely did. Yeah,
And then the way they hold themselves was like dark, ominous. Like, I mean, if I was the other problem with the plot points we mentioned earlier is the fact that if I went to the house to babysit a house, and then those were the two people that greeted me, I'd be like, oh, I left something out in my car. Like, let me go get that real quick because holy shit, and I'd be like, and I'd be running down the street like motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Because they both look creepy as fuck. I mean, he was gigantic, number one, to begin with. She opens the door and she's like his balls were in her mouth. He's like, and she comes in and she's like, dark cloud following me. And the first movie I saw her in, because you may not recognize it, this movie's fantastic. Late 80s movie called Warlock. And she plays kind of like a shisty psychic, you know, one of the people that's like, I will summon, you know, whatever, here to talk to you. And then the warlock shows up, Julian Sands, and he's like, you're full of shit, but I'm going to use you anyway. And then he like summons the devil into her, and then she's all like, yeah, I'm JBL, you know. She's creepy as shit. So.
Yeah, she definitely looks like somebody who would be cast as either like a satanic cultist or a witch or something like that.
And some head of the order, whatever it is. Not just a follower.
Not an underling, but she's gonna be running shit.
Yeah, she's near the top of the fucking list. Yeah, so her and Tom Noonan, I think, made the film for me. The three things that made the film are the technical elements, what it looked like and what it felt like, and then those two. I almost feel like I would give it a 1 out of 1 for acting just because they are there. But
but the other parts of it, yeah, because I feel like this one, for as critical as I want to be over some of the aspects of it, I feel like it's going to be. I feel like an 8 out of 8 is slightly too high for all the story element stuff.
I agree. So I feel like it should, just take note that we're mentioning that if you're watching the film, I'm not saying that the film should not be watched. It's not worth a watch. There are a few things about the film that make it, those things are awesome. But there are some things about the film that make it less awesome.
Yeah.
And I think the acting is probably, one of them, with the exception of those two. So 0.5 out of 1.
Yeah, which would end us with a 7.5, which I think is right about where this film belongs, grade wise, because it is good, and I would recommend that people watch it, but there are definite glaring blemishes on it.
Right, I agree. 7.5.
Yeah,
7.5.
Final score.
House of the Devil.